If Machiavelli wanted to make them obsessed with him today, he wouldn't chase, he wouldn't plead, he wouldn't even acknowledge their existence at first. In a world that teaches you to seek attention, to perform for validation, to constantly remind others of your worth, Machiavelli would do the opposite. He would vanish, and in doing so he would create the most powerful force in human psychology: an unanswered question. Obsession doesn't begin with attraction. It begins with absence. It begins with ambiguity. It begins when someone starts asking, where did they go? Why aren't they responding? What are they thinking? And from that first unanswered question, the mind spirals. The more answers you provide, the less they need you. The fewer answers you give, the more they seek. And Machiavelli knew this. Today, he wouldn't flood timelines with photos. He wouldn't update stories with every passing thought. He wouldn't text back in seconds. He would move in silence. He would be seen once, captivating, composed, enigmatic, and then gone. And that absence would echo louder than any presence. Rule 1. Be present, then vanish. Let them see you just long enough to spark. Leave them replaying your last words. Leave them wondering what you truly meant. Because curiosity is the seed of obsession, and humans cannot resist filling gaps in their understanding. The moment you vanish, you occupy their mind. They start imagining who you are. They start projecting what they want from you. They start chasing a version of you that may not even exist. And the beauty is, you control the pace. You control when to reappear. You control when to feed the hunger you created. And every time you do, the obsession deepens, not because of who you are, but because of what they felt when you were gone. Understand this. In a hyper-connected world, invisibility is power. Attention is currency. And scarcity drives value. The more they see you, the more they normalize you. The less they see you, the more they mythologize you. Machiavelli would say, presence creates familiarity. Absence creates legend. And legends live rent-free in the mind. So do not chase. Appear once, captivate, and vanish, and watch how they begin to orbit around your silence. Rule 2. Reward uncertainty, not loyalty. Most people are desperate for stability. They crave knowing where they stand. They want predictable patterns, clear signals, reassurance that their loyalty will be noticed and rewarded. But Machiavelli understood a deeper truth. Certainty kills curiosity. Predictability kills pursuit. And nothing breeds obsession faster than uncertainty. Because when someone knows they have you, when they're sure of your attention, your time, your affection, their mind relaxes. They stop chasing. They stop thinking about you. But when your reactions are unpredictable, when your approval is inconsistent, when your attention fluctuates, they can't stop thinking about you. They become trapped in a loop of self-questioning. Did I do something wrong? Are they upset? Why were they warm yesterday and cold today? What can I do to bring them back? And that loop is where obsession is born. Understand, if you reward loyalty with constant presence, you train them to expect it. You become background noise. But if you reward moments of uncertainty, if you respond unexpectedly after withdrawal, if you offer rare glimpses of warmth after coldness, if you praise unpredictably, you anchor their mind to your fluctuations. They begin chasing highs you control. They become addicted not to you, but to the feeling of winning your attention back. And that is the most potent form of obsession, one rooted not in love, not in admiration, but in the primal need to resolve internal tension. Machiavelli would master this. He would never give consistent praise. He would never offer predictable approval. He would smile when they least expect it, withdraw when they feel closest, compliment after silence, ignore after affection. Not because he's confused, because they are. And confusion creates focus. Focus creates fixation. Fixation breeds obsession. You must become a psychological variable they cannot solve. Reward the moments when they doubt themselves. Reinforce their uncertainty with selective validation. Make your attention feel earned, never given. And watch as they work harder and harder for rewards you never promised. In this game, the uncertain mind is an obsessed mind. The more they question, the more they need you. And the more they need you, the more you control them. Rule 3. Control the first impression. Then contradict it. People believe what they see first. The human brain craves patterns. It loves to categorize. And the first impression you give becomes the framework through which they interpret everything else about you. Machiavelli knew this deeply. He would craft his first impression with absolute precision. He wouldn't show all facets of himself. He would choose which version of himself to present based on the outcome he wanted to engineer. Friendly, humble, supportive, maybe even naive. Why? Because when people think they understand you, they lower their guard. They stop questioning your motives. They stop watching your moves. But Machiavelli would never let that impression remain static. Once the first impression was set, he would deliberately contradict it, slowly, subtly. He would say something unexpectedly sharp, show knowledge that doesn't fit the naive image, act with a confidence that wasn't visible before. Why? Because contradiction forces the mind to reprocess. It creates cognitive dissonance. The person starts thinking, I thought they were this way, but maybe I was wrong. What else am I missing? And this unresolved curiosity becomes a mental hook. They can no longer rely on their first impression. They begin watching more closely, analyzing, obsessing over small cues, every word, every gesture, every silence, because now they feel the need to figure you out. And the more they try, the more their attention is kept. But when you deliberately disrupt the expectations you've created, you make yourself psychologically sticky. They can't stop thinking about you because they can't quite pin you down. Machiavelli would master this game. He would choose when to appear gentle and when to strike with words, when to seem open, when to retreat into mystery, when to show vulnerability, when to radiate unshakable strength, not at random, but precisely calibrated to destabilize the other person's certainty. And when certainty is gone, obsession takes root, because the human mind cannot leave unanswered questions alone, especially when those questions revolve around a person they thought they understood. So control the first impression, shape it carefully. Then, when the timing is right, contradict it, and watch as they begin chasing every new layer you reveal, trying to reconcile the person they thought you were with the enigma you've become. Rule 4. Never chase. Withdraw and pull. Chasing destroys value. It signals neediness. It reveals an imbalance of desire. And Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. In every dynamic, the one who chases lowers their worth in the eyes of the one being pursued. Why? Because humans are wired to devalue what is easily available. The more effort something takes to attain, the more valuable it appears, and the more it seems to resist pursuit, the more the mind fixates on conquering it. That is why Machiavelli would never chase, not in politics, not in influence, not in personal dynamics. Instead, he would withdraw, deliberately, calmly, without explanation. And in doing so, he would pull others toward him, because withdrawal triggers psychological tension. It disrupts expectation. When someone is used to receiving attention, presence, validation, and suddenly it is gone, they experience a drop in emotional state. The mind seeks to correct this imbalance. It begins asking, why did they pull away? Did I do something wrong? How can I get them back? And this questioning becomes pursuit. The more they chase answers, the deeper the obsession grows. Understand this: obsession is not created by giving. It is created by taking away, by removing what was once freely given. Machiavelli would apply this ruthlessly. He would engage just enough to create connection, just enough to spark interest. Then, at the peak of their attention, he would withdraw. Not with anger, not with coldness, but with a calculated, neutral absence. And in that vacuum, desire would expand. Because when something is present, the mind experiences it. When it is absent, the mind imagines, and imagination is far more potent than reality. This is why the ones who are chased rarely obsess. It is the ones who are left behind who do. So never chase, never explain your absence. Never seek to reassure. When you withdraw, do so completely. Let them feel the emptiness. Let them reach out first. And when they do not rush to respond. Let them linger in uncertainty. Let the hunger build, because every second they spend wondering about you deepens their emotional investment. Machiavelli would say the most powerful pull is created not by movement toward, but by movement by becoming what they cannot grasp, by embodying the unsolved mystery. And when you master this, when you withdraw at the moment they want you most, you will find they begin chasing you with an obsession they cannot explain. Not because of what you give, but because of what you withhold. Rule 5. Blur intimacy with distance. Most people misunderstand how obsession is truly formed. They believe it comes from deep connection, constant validation, emotional closeness. But Machiavelli would disagree. He knew that pure intimacy breeds comfort, and comfort kills desire. To create obsession, you must weave intimacy and distance together. You must give them moments of closeness so sharp, so vivid, that they taste something rare, something precious. And then you pull away. Not completely, not coldly, but just enough to create doubt, just enough to leave them wondering where they stand. Because obsession thrives in ambiguity. If they know you are close, they relax. If they know you are distant, they protect themselves. But if they can't tell, if one moment you are present, attentive, engaged, and the next you are withdrawn, unavailable, unreadable, their mind locks on to you. They begin searching for patterns. They replay past interactions. They analyze every message, every glance, every silence. And in that analysis, their emotional investment deepens. Machiavelli would engineer this deliberately. He would offer moments of rare connection, an intense conversation, an unexpected compliment, a fleeting moment of vulnerability. Enough to make them feel special, enough to plant the idea, maybe I matter more to them than others do. And then he would step back, miss a call, delay a reply, seem distant in person, and that contrast would drive them mad. Not with anger, but with craving. Because the human mind craves consistency. When it is denied consistency, it obsesses. It seeks to restore the lost state. It starts asking, did I imagine the connection? Have they changed? How can I bring back the intimacy I tasted? And this cycle pulls them deeper. Understand this. Obsession is not built on constant presence. It is built on emotional whiplash, on moments of closeness that are never fully stable, never fully safe, moments that make them feel chosen, followed by space that makes them question that belief. Machiavelli would say, the greatest power is held by those who can make others doubt their own perceptions, and this is how you do it, by blurring intimacy with distance, not by being cold, not by being warm, but by being both at times of your choosing. So give them the connection they crave, but only in controlled doses. And watch as they chase each moment you withdraw, falling deeper into a web of their own making. Because in the absence of certainty, the mind cannot let go. Rule 6. Speak less. Make them imagine more. Words are powerful, but silence is irresistible. Machiavelli understood that the more you say, the more you reveal. Not just about facts, but about yourself. Every word clarifies your position, defines your boundaries, makes you predictable, and what remains unsaid, that haunts the mind, it lingers, it echoes, it invites endless interpretation. When you speak less, you force others to fill the silence with their own projections, their own desires, their own fears. And in doing so, you give them ownership of the obsession. They become complicit in creating the version of you they can't stop thinking about. Machiavelli would master this dynamic. In conversation, he would offer just enough to spark. They begin to wonder, what did they mean by that? Why did they pause? What are they hiding? And the more they wonder, the more they invest. The mind abhors a vacuum. It rushes to fill gaps in understanding, and the more gaps you leave, the more mental real estate you occupy. This is why those who speak endlessly, who explain every thought, who clarify every position, become forgettable. They leave no mystery, no unanswered question to pull others back in. Machiavelli would say, give them 60%. No more. Let the remaining 40% remain shrouded, uncertain. Let them chase your meaning. Let them replay your words late at night. Let them imagine conversations that never happened, because the imagined you will always be more seductive than the real you. And the more they imagine, the deeper their obsession grows. So discipline your speech. Resist the urge to clarify. Embrace the power of suggestion, and understand, in the realm of influence, what is unsaid often wields more power than what is spoken. The less they know, the more they chase. The more they chase, the more they obsess. And the more they obsess, the tighter your grip becomes, without ever needing to say a word. Rule 7. Exploit their insecurities with kindness. Most people believe that power is exerted through dominance, through coldness, through distance, through intimidation. But Machiavelli knew a more subtle, far more insidious path. Kindness. Not the naive, generous kindness of saints, but weaponized kindness. Targeted, deliberate, designed to burrow beneath defenses and tether the mind. How? By wrapping itself around their deepest insecurities. Understand this. Every person carries hidden doubts about their worth, their intelligence, their attractiveness, their value to others. These doubts are often concealed beneath confidence, beneath humor, beneath bravado, but they are there, and they are hungry. Machiavelli would not attack these insecurities head-on. He would never insult or criticize. That triggers resistance. Instead, he would speak directly to them, but with soft, seemingly supportive words. It's impressive how you always keep going, even when you must feel overwhelmed sometimes. I admire how you handle situations where others might doubt you. You've come so far, despite what some people probably thought of you. These statements appear kind, supportive, but beneath them they echo the very doubts the person already harbors. They subtly affirm the existence of those insecurities, making the person feel both seen and vulnerable at the same time. And when someone feels that their hidden struggles are understood by you, they bond, they attach, they begin to see you as the rare person who gets them. But it is not trust that grows. It is dependence, because now you become the emotional mirror through which they view themselves. They seek your approval not just to feel good, but to quiet the voice of doubt that your words carefully stirred. Machiavelli would wield this with precision. He would never overuse it. A comment here, a glance there, a perfectly timed remark that touches the right nerve. And then he would step back. Let them stew. Let them crave further validation. Because the mind, once unsettled in this way, begins to seek resolution. It wants reassurance. It wants more of the kindness that soothes the doubt it can no longer ignore. And in chasing that reassurance, the person binds themselves tighter to you. So remember, to truly anchor obsession, do not fight insecurities. Feed them gently. Not to harm, not to destroy, but to create an emotional gravity so subtle, so profound, that they can no longer imagine feeling whole without your voice in their world. That is power. That is control. And it all begins with kindness. Rule 8. Mirror their desires, not your intentions. Most people make the fatal mistake of revealing what they want too soon. They state their goals, their plans, their hopes, believing this will inspire trust or alignment. But Machiavelli would never fall into this trap. He knew that the moment you reveal your true intentions, you give others the tools to resist, to manipulate, or to withdraw. Instead, he would mirror their desire, because people are naturally drawn to those who reflect their own wants, their own needs, their own hidden cravings. When they see themselves in you, when they believe you value what they value, they lower their defenses. They lean in. They begin to trust. But that trust is not based on who you are. It is based on who they believe you are. And this is where obsession begins. Machiavelli would enter any dynamic not with his goals at the forefront, but with curiosity, deep observation. What does this person seek? Approval? Status? Validation? Intimacy? Escape? Power? Whatever it was, he would subtly reflect it back, not by parroting, but by aligning energy. If they craved significance, he would make them feel important. If they sought connection, he would offer brief, intoxicating moments of closeness. If they hungered for validation, he would supply it, but unpredictably, keeping them striving for more, all while concealing his true path. Why? Because when someone believes you want what they want, they project trust, admiration, and loyalty onto you. They pull themselves deeper into the dynamic. They invest. They commit. And every investment they make increases their psychological need to justify that investment, creating a loop of self. They weigh costs. They calculate risks. But if you mirror their desires, they stop thinking. They start feeling. And emotion, when skillfully guided, are infinitely more powerful than logic. Machiavelli would say, let them see their reflection in your gaze. Let them hear their dreams echoed in your words. Let them believe you are aligned, that you understand, that you resonate with the deepest parts of them. And while they are enchanted by this reflection, while they are willingly pulling closer, your true intentions remain hidden, moving forward unopposed. In this game, the person who defines the frame controls the narrative, and the person who mirrors desire commands devotion. So never reveal too soon. Observe, mirror, and let them fall, not for who you are, but for who they believe you to be. Rule 9. Give 80%. Withhold 20%, they'll crave. Full satisfaction ends the chase. Total fulfillment closes the loop. And Machiavelli understood that the key to sustained obsession is not in giving everything someone wants, but in strategically leaving them hungry for more. Humans are driven by the gap between desire and attainment. When they believe they are close, almost there, just shy of complete, they will pour endless energy into closing that gap. But if they ever feel they have fully attained you, fully understood you, fully consumed what you offer, their mind relaxes, their attention drifts, their obsession fades. Machiavelli would never allow this. He would give generously, 80%, enough to spark deep connection, enough to form powerful emotional memories, enough to make them believe they are special, that they are progressing, that they are close to having all of you. And then he would withhold, deliberately, consistently, 20% of mystery, 20% of distance, 20% of unanswered questions, not so much that it creates frustration or rejection, but just enough to sustain curiosity, longing, pursuit. It might be a story left unfinished, a message half answered, an emotion hinted at but never fully expressed, a glance that suggests depth they have not yet explored. And in that 20% lies the hook, because the mind cannot ignore what it almost understands. It fixates, it analyzes, it obsesses. This is why some relationships burn out quickly. Too much is given, too soon, fully. But Machiavelli would orchestrate the dynamic like a master composer, building tension, releasing it partially, then building again. Each interaction would deepen the bond, without ever resolving it completely. Understand, the more someone invests in closing the gap, the more they attach, the more they chase the missing 20%, the more their emotional dependence grows. And the irony is this: if you ever gave them the full 100%, the spell would break. They would lose the hunger. The obsession would dissolve. So discipline yourself. Resist the urge to give everything. Hold back the piece they crave most. Protect the unknown. And let their mind fill that space with longing. Because in this game, what remains out of reach is what draws them in. Not what you give, but what you deliberately withhold. That is how you sustain obsession. Not for moments, but for years. Rule 10. Create emotional debt without asking. Most people believe that reciprocity is built through direct exchanges, through favors requested, debts acknowledged, agreements made explicit. But Machiavelli knew that the most powerful form of debt is the one that is never named, never demanded, never even fully understood by its target. Emotional debt, the kind that grows silently in the background of a relationship, the kind that binds without visible chains. How is it created? By giving strategically, precisely, and without expectation of return. Not grand gestures, not obvious sacrifices, but small, perfectly timed actions that impact them emotionally. A word of encouragement when they needed it most. A solution to a problem no one else noticed. A subtle act of support that feels personal, rare, intimate, and then Silence. No follow-up, no reminder, no collection, just space. And in that space, the debt grows, because humans are wired to balance social ledgers. When someone does something meaningful for us, especially when it feels unearned or unexpected, we feel an inner pressure, a need to repay, to equalize, to relieve the subtle tension of owing. But when the giver does not ask for repayment, that tension lingers, it deepens, it transforms into a persistent awareness. I owe them. I don't know how much, I don't know when, but I owe them. And that awareness breeds obsession, because the mind begins tracking every interaction through the lens of that unseen debt. Every future encounter becomes colored by it. Decisions become influenced by it. Emotional responses became shaped by it. Machiavelli would cultivate this dynamic with exquisite precision. He would observe carefully, waiting for the perfect moment, when a gesture would land with maximum emotional resonance. And once delivered, he would withdraw, letting the target stew in the discomfort of gratitude without closure. No reminders, no collection, just a lingering, unspoken imbalance. Over time, this creates a web of influence far stronger than any explicit favor could, because an unacknowledged debt cannot be repaid cleanly. It cannot be dismissed. It remains alive in the background, shaping thoughts, driving behaviors, increasing attachment, and the more the person tries to compensate, through increased attention, through favors of their own, through efforts to prove, the more they entangle themselves further. Understand, the most potent bonds are not forged through clear contracts, but through invisible weights of emotional obligation. So give strategically, expect nothing, and watch as they begin to orbit around the debt they cannot resolve. That is how you bind them, not with force, not with demand, but with a gift they could never quite return. Rule 11. Manufacture loyalty by letting them betray others for you. Loyalty is not truly built through kindness, through shared experiences, or through admiration. Machiavelli understood a darker truth. Real loyalty is forged through complicity. When someone betrays another in your favor, when they violate their own code, when they cross a line for you, because they respect you, but because their actions have tied their identity to you. The moment they betray for you, they cannot easily turn away. They cannot easily oppose you, because to do so would force them to confront their own guilt, their own compromised integrity. And the human mind instinctively avoids such painful reflection. Instead, it rationalizes. It deepens the bond. It convinces itself that the betrayal was justified, that you are worthy of their loyalty, that the relationship must be preserved at all costs. Machiavelli would never ask directly for such betrayals. He would never issue commands or overt suggestions. That invites resistance. Instead, he would create subtle opportunities, gaps in conversation, moments of shared frustration, ambiguous signals that invite the other person to step over the line voluntarily. Perhaps they share a piece of gossip they shouldn't. Perhaps they criticize an ally to gain your favor. Perhaps they take an action that undermines someone else, believing it will please you. And when they do, he would not gloat. He would not overtly reward it. He would simply acknowledge it, perhaps with a glance, a slight nod, a subtle shift in tone, enough to reinforce the behavior, enough to let them know that the bond has deepened, and from that point forward the dynamic shifts. The person now has skin in the game. They have invested their integrity in the relationship, and the more they seek to justify that initial betrayal, the more loyal they become. Because to betray you now would force them to confront the truth of what they've already done. Understand this. Loyalty built on admiration is fragile. Loyalty built on shared guilt is unbreakable, because it is self-reinforcing. The more they betray for you, the more they must cling to you to avoid facing their own darkness. Machiavelli would cultivate this web with patience, with precision, never forcing, always allowing, because the loyalty that is volunteered is infinitely stronger than the loyalty that is demanded. So do not seek blind devotion. Seek small betrayals in your favor, and let those betrayals chain them to you, quietly, irrevocably. Rule 12. Break alliances from the inside. Machiavelli understood that direct confrontation is rarely the most effective path to dismantling power structures. Open attacks forge unity among those who feel threatened, but subtle erosion, planted doubt, quiet division, whispered suspicion can collapse even the strongest alliances without a single overt strike. Humans are tribal by nature. They seek belonging, shared identity, group protection, but within every alliance, beneath the surface loyalty, lie fractures, insecurities, rivalries, unspoken resentments, unbalanced contributions. Machiavelli would make it his mission to find these cracks, and then he would press, gently, imperceptibly, until the alliance unraveled from within. He would never attack the group as a whole. He would focus on individuals, those whose loyalty wavered, those who felt underappreciated, those hungry for more influence. To these he would offer subtle cues, a comment left hanging, a suggestion that another member harbors unspoken doubts. Have you noticed how they never really consult you on key decisions? I'm sure it's unintentional, but it does seem like your contributions go unnoticed. Strange how they were so quick to side with her last time, isn't it? These are not accusations. They are seeds, and once planted, the mind does the rest. Humans are masters of self-rationalization. Once a seed of doubt takes root, they begin to see confirming evidence everywhere. They interpret neutral actions as slights. They grow hypersensitive to perceived exclusion. They distance themselves emotionally, often without even realizing it. And as these individual fractures widen, group cohesion dissolves, trust erodes, communication falters, alliances implode, not through external force, but through internal decay. Machiavelli would time this perfectly. He would sow discord long before seeking to capitalize on it. He would wait, patiently, as the group consumed itself from within. And when the alliance finally crumbled, when former allies became wary rivals, he would step in, not as the cause of the collapse, but as the seemingly neutral party, ready to pick up the pieces. Understand this. The strongest alliances are not broken by attack. They are broken by carefully fed insecurity. So observe, listen, identify the fractures beneath the surface, and when the time is right, feed them. Softly, subtly, without trace, let the alliance destroy itself. And when it does, you will find yourself standing amidst the ruins, untouched, ready to claim what remains. Rule 13. Reflect their insecurities back at them. Machiavelli knew that power does not always lie in grand gestures or overt manipulation. Sometimes, the most effective form of control is subtle, mirroring back the very doubts a person harbors about themselves. Because when you hold up a mirror to someone's insecurities, not through cruelty, but through carefully veiled acknowledgement, you become the person they unconsciously seek validation from. Every human carries insecurities, no matter how confident their exterior. It might be a fear of inadequacy, a sense of not being respected, doubts about their intelligence, appearance, or worth. These insecurities operate beneath the surface, shaping behavior, coloring interactions, driving decisions. Machiavelli would identify these quickly. He would watch for the micro-reactions, the forced laughter, the defensiveness, the subtle shifts in tone when certain topics arise. And once he understood the shape of their insecurity, he would begin to reflect it, not with insult, not with mockery, but with gentle, seemingly compassionate statements that quietly validate the very doubts they try to hide. You handle criticism so gracefully, it must have taken you a lot to build that level of confidence. You always bring such fresh ideas, even when others might not take them seriously at first. It's admirable how you stay composed, even when you probably feel overlooked sometimes. On the surface, these sound like compliments, but beneath they echo the insecurity. And once echoed, the insecurity is amplified. The person becomes acutely aware of the gap between how they wish to be seen and how they fear they are perceived. And in that discomfort, they seek resolution. They seek reassurance. They seek the one voice that acknowledges their hidden truth. Machiavelli would never overplay this. He would seed just enough doubt to make the person crave validation, then withhold it strategically, offering it in small doses that deepen dependence. Because when someone feels seen in their vulnerability, they attach, not out of trust, but out of emotional need. And the more they rely on you to soothe the insecurity you've subtly surfaced, the more power you wield. Understand, overt threats trigger resistance. Subtle reflection of doubt fosters obsession. So listen, observe, identify the cracks beneath the surface, and when the moment is right, hold up the mirror. Kindly. Let them see themselves through your eyes, and as they do, watch them draw closer, seeking the comfort that only you appear to offer. That is the essence of quiet control. Rule 14. Withdraw right after intimacy peaks. Most people misunderstand the true mechanics of emotional bonding. They believe that sustained closeness deepens attachment, that the more time you spend together, the stronger the bond becomes. But Machiavelli knew the truth. It is not continuous presence that creates obsession. It is absence at the moment of highest emotional investment. Humans are wired to seek emotional resolution. When a peak experience is interrupted, when intimacy, connection, vulnerability are abruptly followed by distance, the mind locks on to the unfinished moment. It replays it. It fixates on it. It becomes trapped in a loop of craving completion. Machiavelli would orchestrate this with precision. He would engineer moments of deep connection, conversations that strip away pretense, shared experiences that feel rare and intimate, gestures that make the other person feel uniquely seen and valued. And then, just as the emotional wave crests, he would withdraw. Calmly, without warning, without explanation. Not in anger, not in rejection, but in a way that leaves the other person suspended, caught between the warmth they felt and the cold uncertainty that follows. And in that suspension, obsession takes root, because the human mind cannot tolerate unfinished emotional business. It seeks to close the loop, to restore the lost connection, to understand what changed, and the more they seek, the more they replay the peak moment, the more they chase the high they can no longer access. Understand, continuous presence breeds comfort. Comfort breeds complacency. But withdrawal at the height of emotional investment creates a powerful vacuum the other person will desperately seek to fill. Machiavelli would use this in all domains: personal relationships, alliances, negotiations. He would know exactly when to retreat, after the conversation where they felt closest to him, after the moment when they believed the relationship had shifted to a new level, after the exchange where they revealed more of themselves than they intended. And by withdrawing then, by stepping back when they were most open, he would ensure that their thoughts could not leave him, that every silence felt louder, that every unanswered message carried weight, that every future interaction was driven not by casual interest, but by an obsessive need to recapture what was lost. So discipline your timing. Do not fade gradually. Withdraw sharply, strategically, right after the peak. And in doing so, you will leave them chasing a ghost of connection, trapped in a loop of their own making, unable to let go. Rule 15. Never be defined. Become an enigma. The human mind craves certainty. It seeks to label, categorize, understand. Once someone believes they have you figured out, they relax. The mystery dissolves. Interest fades. Machiavelli knew this instinctively. He understood that to sustain fascination, to fuel obsession, you must remain undefinable. You must become a puzzle with no final piece, a book with no final chapter, a presence that cannot be pinned down. The moment they can describe you fully, when they can say with confidence, "I know who they are," you lose your grip on their thoughts. You become familiar, and what is familiar cannot haunt the mind. But when you remain an enigma, when every answer raises new questions, when every moment of clarity is followed by new ambiguity, you force them into a perpetual state of curiosity. They lean in closer. They scrutinize every word, every action. They replay interactions, searching for patterns, for clues. And in that endless search, obsession takes root. Machiavelli would cultivate this with ruthless precision. He would reveal just enough to suggest depth, but never enough to map it. He would shift roles seamlessly, confident in one moment, distant observer the next. He would contradict expectations strategically, not to confuse, but to intrigue, a display of unexpected warmth, a sudden withdrawal, a flash of insight where they thought there was none, a moment of sharpness where they expected softness. Always moving, always evolving, never static, because in motion you are harder to define, understand. Consistency in behavior breeds predictability. Predictability breeds boredom. But carefully curated inconsistency, strategic unpredictability, creates allure. It makes you larger in their mind than you are in reality. It turns you from a person into a symbol, an idea, a force they cannot quite grasp. And ideas, when left unresolved, are far more powerful than people. Machiavelli would say, become the unanswered question in their life, the person whose name sparks curiosity, the presence whose motives they debate late into the night, the figure they cannot define you, they cannot dismiss you, they cannot move on, they cannot let go, they remain trapped, not by your actions, but by their own need to understand what cannot be understood. That is the final stage of obsession, not pursuit of the person, but pursuit of the mystery they represent. So guard your layers, shift your masks, never settle into one role, and in doing so, become the enigma they cannot escape.